The matter of pride is something that is interesting to me. I do think that pride is quite a serious sin. And of course, we're all prey to it. Nobody is able to completely remove himself or herself from the sin of pride. But it's interesting to me that sometimes people might think that accumulating wealth and fine things is somehow dishonoring God, while remaining poor and giving away many possessions is somehow honoring God. And so pride, you see, can be worn with a pair of handmade shoes or with bare feet. I have seen people walking barefooted with pride in their spiritual elevation because of their deprivation. And it is certainly, of course, everybody knows, very hasty to criticize somebody simply because they are wealthy. Um, I do increasingly think that a man or a woman should cut her or his coat according to his cloth. Um, we should live within our means, of course. This seems to be perfectly reasonable. But to claim that poverty is a virtue and wealth is somehow iniquity is clearly completely wrong. Although I think it's secretly some men do think in those terms. If one has wealth, then surely one should live well and wear fine clothes and furnish one's house with grace and have many horses or large motor cars or this sort of thing. That there really is nothing wrong with that stuff. I mean, one will exercise charity in one's life in proportion to one's ability to do it. That follows clearly. And of course, there are some people who might just do it symbolically by giving it money to one of these wretched organizations, which becomes just a tax relief, you see. Well, that would be a little bit deceptive, I think. But I'm sure there are many of my wealthy brethren who understand these things intimately and make their charitable efforts in a meaningful and concealed way, as we're instructed to do. Any man can do it, irrespective, or woman, irrespective of their, position on the scale of opulence. So yeah, sleeping in a doorway really doesn't get you into heaven. I'm sorry, you know that. Everybody knows that, of course. But and although the Bible does say it is harder for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God than for a camel to enter through the eye of a needle. That's an interesting one, isn't it? Because, of course, it would seem impossible, therefore, according to the words of Jesus Christ, to get into heaven if you've got a bob or two. And who hasn't? I mean, let's face it. Most people have got a few pounds or dollars stashed away. But there was an interpretation of that. I suppose people have heard it, that the eye of a needle was considered to be the gate through which camels entered into the city. And it was a defensive structure, and so it was narrow. And it was designed literally to allow a camel to pass through, and it became known as the eye of a needle. And so it wouldn't be an impossible thing to achieve, but something that had to be achieved with care. And I think this makes far more sense because a rich man, you then have to define, is it that somebody above a certain amount of money has just had it? I mean, it doesn't makes no sense at all. And I have seen people in poverty really with such pride. Oh, just pride. It's very hard to point it out, you see, because their pride is somehow interlinked with a moral conceit. This can happen. We have to be ever so careful. I think we should live within our means and make, our environment should be uh, pleasing to God. And if we have great means, we should live in a great environment. It should be very beautifully adorned. It's perfectly fine. I can't see anything wrong with it. And if we have small means, then our environment may be more humble. But again, we are really, I think, expected to make it a place of worship. Whatever it is, our home is a reflection of our spiritual values. And so, you know, we want to live in a clean home. We want to live in a healthy environment, whether we're living in a tiny apartment or whether we're living in a large villa um, with a swimming pool. So it seems to me, anyway. I don't really, see a great problem with wealth um, myself, but so I would see it anyway. I think Solomon would again. Ecclesiastes to me is the book that has been very much on my mind lately. Such beautiful understanding and such depth of knowledge is communicated, is it not? Through Solomon's reasoning. It's perhaps my own age that makes me think in that, think of those things. But yes, I think Solomon understood, and of course, he had a life of he was sinful before God. We're told at a certain point, but I don't think there can be any doubt that he returned quite completely to a state of devotion and love and surrender to the beauty of the Lord our God, Jesus Christ.